All right, hello and welcome everyone. So we're gonna do this one quick and dirty because I've been having some problems with the recording and such, but we need to talk about the Trumna and also the Quassus and whether or not they are good, as they're the weapons that just came out with Zaku. Uh, Easy TLDR here, they're both very, very good weapons. They're not the Torrid Incarnate, as that's like the high point for primary weapons in the whole game, and they're also not the Nami Solo, which is probably the high point for melee weapons in the entire game. But neither of them are incarnate weapons, and we kind of can't expect them to be. So, without considering the absolute top of the pile, these are two extremely high-end, very, very solid weapons. With that, in terms of the Trumna build, it looks maybe how you'd expect, depending on how much you've been keeping up with the recent damage changes and kind of where builds have gone with that. This is kind of just the usual build we're looking at. I will note that part of being able to use Rifle Elementalist on this build is that this is a weapon that has heat already in its elemental palette. So we just get to use thermite rounds and don't have to wait for heat further, because we actually have an incredibly nice weighting of pretty much exactly 50-50 between viral and heat, with a slight tilt towards heat, which is absolutely stellar. It means we don't have to adjust that with any other further modding, allowing us to use Elementalist just to get more damage out of those heat procs. And then otherwise, things are pretty standard here. We have Primed Shred, Rifle Elementalist, also giving us the additional punch through. We're getting Fire Rate, which the Trumna desperately needs, which is going to be mentioned again in a moment. We're on Primary Merciless because that reload speed really is nice, as this weapon does have that 4-second base reload time, but the 3 seconds is definitely manageable with the additional magazine capacity this has over the regular Trumna. And then just our usual suspects, we're on critical mods and multi-shot mods. Shocker, I know. With that, over here for just taste, I have Stabilizer on. You absolutely could instead add Vigilante Supplies if you want to absolutely never run out of ammo. Especially if you're like playing as Gauss. If you're on that style of fire rate, maybe actually consider Vigilante Supplies, as the ammo may be a concern if you really, really pump your fire rate up. But otherwise, Stabilizer, I think, is definitely my preference, as it just makes the weapon, like, you know, it's a laser beam instead of the kind of the big heavy chunk that it tends to have. With that, it's very good. You don't need base damage because, of course, you're on Primary Merciless and so on and so forth. And the viral kind of makes up for some of that as well with the very good status that we have. For that, I do want to show this two different ways real quick, which is we're just going to show it against like this group regularly. I do have Invincibility on. I don't know, do I need to switch to Revenant for you guys? He's invincible also, but I'm just going to make Zaku it as they are new. And we're going to shoot some guys. No buffs or anything like that. Just like, this is kind of like how the ramp up looks. These are, of course, still very high level enemies. They're level 225s. And you can see us building that meter, like, very slowly as we are at, like, the beginning of our ramp. And then the alt fire really does a ton of damage, kind of no matter where we are in our ramp up. Like, no matter where you're at, if you have an alternate fire, it's pretty much going to kill any enemy that you come across very, very quickly. That being said, now that we're ramped up, let's look at this again, as it's going to look quite a bit different. Because you do need to get, of course, Merciless stacked up a bit before you are killing at your usual capacity, which just looks stellar. So this is just how the Trumna is usually going to operate. Kills enemies very, very well. The alt fire evaporates acolytes and pretty much anything that's vulnerable to being hit with millions upon millions of damage, as we are wont to do. And it is extremely solid. With that, before we move on to the Quassus, I want to talk about something very important that maybe didn't come across in my big companion review video, and that is that we are not using a companion now. I'm going to slap on what I believe to be the most universal companion, which is the Panzer. The Panzer is going to be giving us a crit buff with Tenacious Bond, and also a fire rate buff with Reinforced Bond, not to mention the other things that they do. And with just those two buffs, no buffs from your Warframe, none of that stuff, just a very easy, excellent companion that's good on everyone being applied. I want to show just how good this weapon is, because I do think it is a very considerable difference that people should think about. Because just right off the rip, it is, I mean, it's pretty apparent just how important these buffs are. They do a lot. They do not mess around. It is very considerable. Like, and this is a thing that I felt didn't really come across how it should, with just how good these buffs are in the companion video. So I just wanted to highlight it here, that if you are using proper companion buffs, all of your weapons are going to perform way, way better. Though the Trumna may be a little bit more, as I think it benefits more from the fire rate than a lot of other weapons. One last thing to note, because we're going to see if we can catch people in the comments who don't actually watch the video. Lots of people in the comments that don't actually watch the video are going to say punch through doesn't work on this weapon. Why do you have punch through? Why on Prime Shred? Why are you on Elementalist for the punch through? What's the deal with that? The punch through doesn't work on the alt fire. It does work on the primary fire. If you simply equip a punch through mod and then attempt to shoot through some enemies, you will quickly realize it in fact does function. So yeah, call out the people in the comments if they are talking bullshit and didn't actually watch anything, because we love to get them on that. Moving on, we have the Quassus. Now, the Quassus is a unique Warframe. It has a heavy attack that has a projectile attached to it, which is cool, but the build is it's an extremely regular influence build. It's not a whole lot of Forma. It's 2 Forma, which is 1 less than the Trumna, and it is really good. Like, it's exceptionally powerful, like most weapons that can be built like this, because influence turns out is amazing, and it's super nice, but it's not breaking any new ground. It's not doing anything insane. If you love war fans, excellent pair. I would honestly suggest going for it. The utility of having the ranged heavy is really nice and can come up, especially for like those annoying enemies that are floating around in EDA that are normally a real pain if you're on a melee focus. So really nice stuff here. The Quassus could easily go through any type of content like that. On our Gamma Core, we do have a Dex mod, just so we have a little bit of extra combo duration, but that's normal for any melee-focused build. We will be getting the Tenacious buff on here, so we do have some extra crit damage, so that is worth noting before we have our ramp up, because, of course, we do not have, so just to call this out very specifically, we do not have Organ Shatter equipped, and that is actually better because Galvanized Steel is giving us the Organ Shatter stats. We do need to get a couple of kills first, but every other mod in this is just more important. So we cannot, unfortunately, fit Organ Shatter. Also worth noting, on this, you can put Primed Fury here instead. It's more attack speed, but you don't get that nice combo count chance. And the combo count I personally like. So you can actually, I believe, save a Forma on this build. Yeah, you can save a Forma because you don't need this dash polarity. So you can save 1 Forma on this build, and it's actually 1 Forma if you just stick to the quickening. But yeah, that's what's going on with the Quassus. It's gonna do influence things to these enemies. I know you're gonna be really surprised. If you haven't seen influence things before, it's probably gonna look really good. So there's that. The heavy attack is, of course, very nice. It is a multi-hit heavy attack. But yeah, just generally good stuff. Discipline's Merit allows you to use your heavy attack a whole lot. And it is really good. Now that we're ramped up on that like 11x combo, let's show it kind of with its actual real full stats that it's normally gonna have. Getting to do those heavies as needed, and this is of course doing influence things, so like a large bubble around us and any enemies we're hitting is also being killed, and it's excellent stuff. So yeah, that is the Trumna and the Quassus, both fantastic weapons. Probably, you know, maybe the all-around best Prime Access we've had at least since Gauss. That's definitely for sure, and excellent stuff. Hopefully you've enjoyed this and it's been useful. And I'm sure we're all enjoying the Trumna Prime. I mean, if you don't have the Trumna Prime, it seems like anyone who doesn't have it is farming it and just can't wait to use it. And honestly, I get it. But yeah, that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully this has been helpful and you enjoy the builds and such. And I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Hey, turns out you have to record these more often than I have been. My huge apologies, but thank you very much to all of the patrons who have been sticking with. It is very much appreciated because things got weird during the streamathon. But thank you to Athean, Angel SPM, Arbiter Daydream, Barkus, Benuvin, Plotomatic, Brutus Salazar, Canalathra, Dylan Dworsky, Athrain, James Harsthorn, Josh, Bluzanth, Mikokel, Minty Ginja, Michta, Nerve, Ruby, Sanyu, Skur, Sharp247, The Coupon of Death, Waifu Wars, Zeraphir, Alex Barnum, Bob World 3, JC4 Science, and Wodat01, and of course all of the other $5 and $2 patrons. It is extremely appreciated. I'll try and keep this more updated now that the 4 months of Streamathon is over. Good lord. But yeah, lots more guides happening. I think I'm going to be looking to get the site guides like kind of done for at least the CPR, and that's kind of the plan going forward if you're curious on updates for the channel.